what do we do? So, from an adult child's perspective and an elder's perspective, if you start to get to that point where there are some concerns, maybe Dad, I see you paying a bill twice, like I said, or not remembering things that you've done financially, or not all of a sudden forgetting what you have and where your accounts are. What are some steps that let's take it two parts. What are some steps that adult children should take, and what are steps that the elder should take, or the person who is starting to see themselves maybe self-aware about some of the issues? What are some action items?
Good old-fashioned discussion, and I'm not naive. Sometimes it's extremely difficult for any combination of reasons for an adult child to raise this question with a parent. There could be family history that makes it awkward or difficult, and that's why sometimes you need to name a third party, a professional, to be in the role of trustee. Sometimes it isn't right to have your kid. Certainly I would make sure, if I was the kid, I want to make sure I have copies of the documents, ideally. And ideally, if you're the elder, you're going to share those documents. You don't have to share them with everybody in the family, but you do need to share them with the individuals to whom you've given authority and responsibility, the person's named in those documents. So again, it's presenting the document if necessary. That's a tool that can be used. Say, hey, Dad, I see this. I see some issues. Let's go over this. I think that's a nice, it's an entree, a segue that lets you comfortably raise some of these issues. And again, sometimes there needs to be a discussion with the doctor. Hopefully you're named in the advance directive with the waiver that we're talking about. And by the way, hey, reality is many doctors will answer family questions regardless. We know that. It's the kid context where we've seen the most difficult challenges come up. But when the wife is there and the doctor is there and the wife goes out in the hall, or the oldest kid with the doctor, they usually talk to you. We know that. I did serve on the ethics committee at the Stanford Hospital for a couple of years, and we did have a couple of these issues come up. And if somebody's being technical about it, the lines are very clear who can and can't get information. So anyhow, starting out, just raising the issue directly, comfortably, hopefully there's a lot of confidence there. And then the next generation needs to be aware of the pressure points. Where's the money? What can they watch? What do you look for? What's a logical check? By the way, there's a lot of information on the Alzheimer's Association website. What do you look for?
ALZ.org, I believe.
There's a wealth of information out there, and you would really hope also that there is communication with the physician, notwithstanding everything else I said, so that you're aware of any conditions that might be compromising. Many illnesses, by the way, we've seen so many situations where somebody seems to be losing capacity, and then it turns out that they're just incredibly dehydrated. They're not taking care of themselves. And a short hospital stay, and they're absolutely fine. So, this whole issue of capacity, there's many causes, and apparent problem with capacity does not mean that absolutely a person has lost it. There could be physiological reasons for that, and they can be addressed sometimes. Other things that I think are important, and we've done this. We've done this. Passwords. What passwords do you have for your assets? Who has access to them? After you pass away, or if you can't remember them, it's really difficult for I don't care what it says in a power of attorney, it's difficult to get that information. So making sure that your family members or your successor trustees know your password list, know where your assets are. They don't have to know the dollar amount at Vanguard, but they need to know you have Vanguard, and ideally the account numbers. So you're getting those ducks in a row. You're signing the advance directive. You're signing the durable power of attorney. Maybe you're signing the Ulysses clause, or writing a letter to your family where you express this openness, this acknowledgement that there can be issues. That's such a difficult issue. The kid doesn't want to raise it. They fear conflict. Dad's dignity is at stake, and it's complicated. So I want to raise all of those points. And let me go back for a moment. I mentioned the driver's license. In our society, driving a car is often just emblematic of independence and control. And if somebody's no longer able to drive, it's a heavy hit on so many levels. And most of you know that if your physician concludes that you have serious issues, mental or physical, that makes it difficult for you to drive, they are mandatory reporters. They have to contact the DMV. What usually happens is that you're sent a notice and your license is temporarily suspended, and then you have the opportunity to be tested. It isn't always exactly that way, but the point there is sometimes if the family members feel Dad shouldn't be driving, they get the doctor and they put the doctor on notice. And if the doctor knows about issues and doesn't report it, the doctor knows there's liability there. So they they have to take some of these steps. I will tell you one story, a very real story happened here in Palo Alto where a gentleman was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, rather advanced. There were many things he could do physically, but no ability to manage money whatsoever. And driving a car was so key to his existence. Again, long story short, here's what the family did. Rather than take the keys away, they put the keys to the car on a little hook right by the door going to the garage. You can push a button. You can open the garage door. Get into the car. What he would do, they told me, is he would take the keys. He would go over. He would get into the car, and he would start up the engine, open the garage door, and vroom, there he goes. The car was up on blocks. The exhaust was vented to the outdoors. Very important. And they told me, you get these stories, and I believe them, that satisfied dad. He didn't have to do it long. He'd get in the car, he'd come back in, everything is fine. So rather than fight him, they came up with a very creative accommodation. We also had another who, when dad went driving, they called the cops and they told the cops to stop their dad. That was not respectful. I didn't like that way, but hey, you do what you got to do sometimes.
I hope I never need to do that with you, Dad. You drive pretty fast sometimes, so I'll have to.
I'm a crazy. Hey, a Tesla. No, I'm careful. I am careful. So careful.
If you have these issues, if you're the adult child, and I certainly hope this doesn't come up for you and for mom, but if it ever does, I think have family meeting, and we can be a part of that. The attorney can be a part of this, by the way, to say, look, let's do a family meeting, let's come together and talk about this, but it doesn't have to involve attorneys. You have to make sure you have up-to-date trust and power of attorney, ideally ahead of time. Talk as a family. If there are some concerns and someone has self-awareness, you can empower your family to step in. Family, you got to make sure that updated documents are sent to banks and the power of attorney, that the banks know that if they empower you to help out a parent, that the bank knows this, because you might update documents, but if the bank doesn't know you've done that, maybe the adult who's exhibiting worrisome signs still has full control. So you have to update documents, let the banks know. Ideally, you talk about it ahead of time so everybody's on the same page. We got to have the estate planning documents. But if you have from the elder's standpoint, if you're self-aware of this, yeah, talk to your family, talk to us as your attorneys. Let's proactively empower people to help you so we don't have to go through these challenging steps. And I think if you are in that place where you're not self-aware and the family is concerned, a couple bullet points, Dad, there. Like, again, let's just repeat that and then we'll go to some questions. So let's say and we're getting some questions about this. Like, I am worried about my parent. They're starting to exhibit this sign, but they deny it. Just summarizing kind of what you talked about already, some bullet actions there.
If there are issues, what can be just an excellent idea is to bring in a care manager, a social worker who has experience with aging, who understands resources in the community. And to bring somebody like that in, that is not an acknowledgement of lost capacity. That's acknowledging that we need to think about where we're going to be living. We want to have a plan. So mom and dad, so you remain in control. And it's honest. This is not misleading. Saying if things come up, we want to know what's best for you, and you're bringing a care manager. And that's often another way of raising the topic, because the care manager, who hopefully you get somebody very skilled. We have people we work with. They're not on our staff. They're totally independent, but some are very skilled at leading a discussion to raise these topics so that they can be dealt with very directly. So, because again, the question of where you're going to live directly relates to your trust and who's going to be in charge of managing assets. So again, power of attorney, advance directive, a trust, maybe a Ulysses clause, double, triple checking that you're comfortable with the individuals to whom you have given authority, making sure that your information, lists of assets, passwords, that is organized reasonably well, and that somebody in the family knows where to find it. Engineers out there are usually pretty good about this, but here's the point. You have to assume that you're going to disappear tomorrow or lose the ability to manage things tomorrow. Ask yourself, will your loved ones be able to carry on and manage things without you? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
We don't want you to be stuck in court. We don't want you to be conned. If you have a loved one who's exhibiting these behaviors, hey, you got to hit it head on and act proactively. Don't wait until it's a disaster. Ideally, we should all cooperate and work together, because there's so much we can do to prevent these issues before they happen. And make sure your estate plan is up to date. And it's not done with some simple program or downloadable forms. You need to have a sophisticated living trust, a power of attorney, advance directive. They all have to be consistent with your wishes and up to date. Make sure they're done, updated, especially as you get older, every 3 to 5 years at least. Otherwise, even if you have an up-to-date power of attorney that reflects your wishes, banks might not accept it. So make sure it's up to date. Talk to us if you'd like to explore this more. Any closing thoughts, Mike, before we head out?
What occurs to me is this talk, which is based on experience and having worked with so many people, underscores to me, this may sound odd, the danger of AI. There's going to be so much information available because you can now have ChatGPT write everything. But you need to talk with not just attorneys, but I mean medical, every context. We all need to be aware of this and a little bit worried and talk to individuals who have experience. And there's no formula for these things. We're all individuals. We need to deal with them as individuals and with a great deal of respect.
For those of you who haven't subscribed to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel, please do so. Very easy. You can just point your phone at this or just Gilfix Law on YouTube. We have hundreds of thousands of views now. We're in the thousands of subscribers. We're really excited about that. This video will be there if it's not already. And for those of you who have not, so subscribe. Easy to find us. Gilfix.com, 650-493-8070. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys again very soon. Take care.